Hello friends, my name is Graciela. I am the Parent Star Specialist at the Children's Museum Houston. Thank you so much for joining us for our Tuesdays Brain Builder activities, where we make science, math, and reading super fun. Okay, so make sure you stay till the end of the video because I am also going to go over vocabulary words and how to extend the activity. Before we get started, I would like to thank the McGovern Foundation for sponsoring this activity. Okay, the activity we have for today is called Yarn Story, and our focus will be on reading. Let's get started. So for Yarn Story, we're going to be making this lovely heart with lovely woven yarn in it. For this activity, you'll need some yarn, tape, hole punch, scissors, and a heart. Now I have this one already printed out, but you can go ahead and draw one on any color paper you'd like. And finally, the story Extra Yarn by Marc Barnet, illustrated by John Clayson. Okay, so the first step in our yarn story activity is to read together Extra Yarn by Marc Barnet, illustrated by John Clayson. Let's see what happens. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. Oh, isn't that a pretty sweater? And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And then, even after she made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, the sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could, and she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Wow, that's a lot of yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and Mr. Pendleton and Miss Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat, and then Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs, all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon, people thought Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even need sweaters. Things began to change in that little town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." 10 million, shouted the Archduke. Take it or leave it. Leave it, said Annabelle. I won't sell the yarn. And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box. And they took it to the Archduke, who set it off across the snow and sailed over to the sea. Oh no! Back to his castle. The Archduke put his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and lifted its lid, and he looked inside. Uh-oh. His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out of the window and shouted, Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again. Uh-oh, why do you think the box was empty, huh? But it turned out she was. The end. After you finish reading the book, we're going to cut out the heart. Okay, and we should have this lovely heart all cut out. Next, we're going to take the hole punch and cut holes all around the heart. Next, get a pretty generous size of yarn, cut it. You're going to grab a piece of tape and put one end through the back and tape it down. Then you can start weaving. Through the heart. And as you weave through it, you can ask your child different questions. For example, how did Annabelle feel having extra yarn? How do you think the people who got new sweaters felt? Why do you think she had so much extra yarn? Once you're done weaving, you can take another piece of tape, tape it to the back, and there you go. You have a lovely woven heart. As you do the activity with your child, some vocabulary words to keep in mind are yarn, heart, knit, extra, and happy. If you guys want to do a similar activity, check out Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. You guys can use crayons to go on your very own adventure. Okay friends, that's all the time we have today. My name is Graciela and I'm with the Children's Museum Houston. Thank you so much for joining us and we'll see you next time.